in there? No. Okay, I'll just do it for you.
Morning, everybody. These are my big high school principal boys. Thanks for coming out on such a snowy day. My name is Cathy Sankey, and I'm principal of Dublin-Durham High School. Dublin is a northwest suburb of Columbus. We have 3 high schools, and Dublin-Durham is the newest high school. We've been open for 11 years. So that tells you just a little bit about us. I want to thank so much the people from Washington Courthouse who came. I listened to their presentation, and what's always reaffirming to me every time we come to conferences is that I learn something from every presentation I go to. We're all doing the same work. We're all doing PLC work. We're all trying to focus on learning. And so at Dublin-Durham, one of the things we try to work very hard on for 11 years is our professional learning community work and a focus on learning every day in every classroom with every teacher all the time. And as you know, that's a challenge. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. Here's a little bit about Dublin-Durham High School, and then I'll tell you why I'm sharing this. So we are a national Blue Ribbon school. We're also a national PLC at Work school. We were rated this year 102 overall by Newsweek and have a gold award from U.S. News and World Report. We are an IB International Baccalaureate World School because we offer the diploma program. We did take the PISA test, which is that test where the United States looks horrible usually in conjunction with the rest of the world. Shanghai is the highest performing school district in the world, and we beat them in all 3 sections of that test. We PI score this year was a 114.5, which is the highest high school PI score in the state. I say that not to say, oh great, look how great we are. I say that is because we are adherents for professional learning community work. And for us, in every classroom, we believe that it is our PLC work that has made the difference in results. So before we go on, I want to define a little bit about what that means to us and how we organize ourselves. I was an assistant principal. This is my 15th year of being a high school administrator. I've been in Dublin-Durham since it opened, and I've been principal 9 years, assistant principal 2 years, 4 years prior to that, I was an assistant principal at Dublin-Kaufman. All of us have, I think, those life-changing moments in our professional careers. And for me, I went to an academy called the Franklin County Principal Academy, my 2nd year of being an assistant principal. And they had a guy that not too many people had heard of at that point, and his name was Richard DeFore. And I heard Richard DeFore speak, and I was forever changed as an educator. He said everything I believed about education and personalizing and individualizing education so that every student can achieve and every student can grow. I was forever changed. I came back, my principal thought I was a babbling fool, I'm sure, because I kept talking to him about how do we try this, how do we get this going. At that point, Dublin-Kaufman had 2,400 students, 170 certified staff, another 50 classified staff. I grew up in Southern Ohio. There aren't cities that big. And I was an assistant principal at one. And so for us, the daunting task was, how do you start something like PLC work when you're working with such a large number of people? So one of the things we did was we decided we need to focus on collegiality first and not just say, okay, guess what, we're going to do PLC work, we're all going to like each other, we're all going to meet in teams, we're all going to share data. Dublin-Kaufman at that point was a very traditional high school. What I mean by that, it was very departmentalized. People worked in isolation. This would have been probably 1999 to 2000, something like that. I had given it my goal as an assistant principal. I wanted to come in and get to know people. So I gave my goal, new administrator, end of the 1st quarter, I'd learn everyone's name in the building. Custodian, cook, classified, certified. I was getting desperate So I remember grabbing a staff member. We had 8 portables. We were out of room. That was, again, because Jerome was going to open after that. So we were completely overcrowded. 70 of the teachers were on carts. Talk about really making people happy, by the way. 70 people did not have a classroom and pretty much traveled every single period. It was cart city. So I wanted to get everyone's notes. So I remember grabbing a staff member. I look out on the courtyard. They're passing the portables. I go, I don't know who that person is. I grab a staff member. I go, who is that? I have no idea. So the staff members didn't even know each other's names. That's how big it was. So we had to work on collegiality. So if you're, how many of you are on this PLC journey at some point, in some way? It is a journey. It's not a destination. We try to get better every day. We had a PD day, actually. I just met with our staff. We just went over learning target work. We went over feedback and assessment work, and we went over district differentiation again and again and again, because we have a lot of new staff too. So they're the characteristics that we focus on. And you have copies of the presentation, but the last quote is the one that I really enjoy the most. PLC is an ethos that infuses every single aspect of the school. When a school becomes a PLC, everything in the school looks different than it did before. The way we do business is completely different than the way most high schools do business, I believe. It looks differently. It should look differently. Our students should know the term PLC work. They should know we're focusing on learning every day. And that becomes the challenge. One of the papers that you have with you, so there's our 3 focus areas. Focus on learning systemically and sustainability. We don't do new programs. We don't bring in new programs every time. Our program, that's what you want to call it, is PLC work. We focus on learning every day. Just as Washington Courthouse said, you have to develop that collaborative culture and climate, and you have to be results focused. It is all about results. If we don't believe it's about results, then you end up getting the results that you want and that you're satisfied with. So you have to get better. Carol Dweck, mindset. We're using that book currently. Growth mindset. Everyone in your building can get better every single day at something they're doing toward learning. Got to see her last February. So how do you develop an unrelenting focus on learning every day? Unrelenting, which means you can never give up on a kid. Every kid can grow. Every kid can learn. I think it's important to identify for yourself what barriers exist in your building or in your district. And that's one of the things we did. How many are external and how many are internal? Time is a big one, for instance. And I'll talk about how you manage 3 high schools in a district when they're all a little different place. And that's been a real challenge for us. Sometimes that's a barrier for us. We have to look at every aspect of how we do business. We have to remember that if we're going to be a PLC work in all phases and grow in that work and get better at that work, then we have to be willing to give certain things up in order to do that. And then developing a school community with alignment to learning. What is the constant in your buildings? What is the constant in the classrooms? Is the constant time or the constant learning? And we're going to talk about how we break down that PLC work. But if every one of your teachers does not believe that learning is the constant, that at the end of chapter 8, you must go on to chapter 9, no matter how many kids did not learn the learning targets in chapter 8, then those kids become going from English 1 to English 2 to English 3. You own all of them, and if they're not learning what they're supposed to learn, guess what? They start out behind the next year. And so, what are those kinds of barriers that we have? We call it looking out the mirror and not out the window. There are a lot of reasons that we could use for not being a very good learning community. We have 3 high schools in our district, for instance. We could continually to say, every time we ask to do something, we could continue to say, well, it's because we have 3 high schools, and we can't always get what we want, right? It's like the Rolling Stones song. almost everything we've done has not really required a lot of extra money. It has required a restructuring of how we do business. But look in the mirror, not out the window. Not out the window means you're blaming outside forces. You know, the good kids aren't home in the closet, are they? I mean, the parents send us the kids they have every day to try to make sure that our focus is on learning. So, we've looked at our suspension policies. Never made sense for me to stand up in front of my staff and say, remember, focus on learning. Let's not give 10 extra credit points for boxes of Kleenexes. Let's make sure our grades reflective of learning. Are our grades reflective of learning? That's huge in a high school, isn't it? How much of that grade is not reflective of learning? So if you're really going to do on that work and you're going to look at Dylan Williams, you're going to look at formative assessment, then you'll have to be able to say as a district, why are we affecting student learning with out-of-school suspensions? See, there's an incongruity there. So now our out-of-school suspensions are for full credit. Yes, you're not allowed to come to school and you still have to do the work. And you will get full credit for it because why? Because our message is the focus is on learning. There are consequences for behaviors, but the focus is on learning. And by the way, those are your most at-risk kids probably in the building, the ones that keep getting suspension or in school suspension. So how do you continue to make sure those kids are also learning? Because somebody's going to end up with them the next semester or the next class. We've done a lot of focus on instruction and what instruction is. Everybody tells us, Stiggins tells us, Marzano tells us, there are umpteen studies that show it is not the principal that has the most effect on student learning. It is not the superintendent, and they're not the curriculum directors. It is the person who is in the classroom for the 48 minutes or the 43 minutes, however much length of time you have that student. So how are we helping our teachers become better at instruction? And I'll talk a little bit about that because that is your most significant bang for your bucks. And I do worry about teacher attendance, and I do worry about substitutes and that. And you have to be able to have some of those conversations as well. And paradigm shifts, deep-rooted beliefs about teaching and learning. It is so easy to say that I believe all students can learn. In fact, one of the handouts that you have is the orange one that says, all kids can learn. Is there anyone that's going to stand up in front of their staff and say, raise your hand if you believe that all kids can learn? Everybody is going to raise their hand. However, when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, do they really need all kids? When you have that special ed kid in AP, do they, well, I don't know. I mean, really? Do you really expect them to learn advanced placement course? What about in IB? What about in honors? So this is a really early exercise we did. This is from before. It is a wonderful way of getting for your deep-rooted beliefs about teaching and learning on your staff. You can see the instructions at the top. We put ours up there, but basically we said, which high school do you think we are? Which one best describes how most high school operates? And which school would you want your child to attend? Put a star behind it. There's the incongruity. What classroom would you want your child to be in? Well, I want the one to be in the classroom where everyone can learn. Of course you would. However, are we 100% on board with all kids can learn? Because sometimes when push comes to shove, they don't really mean all kids. So that's an interesting exercise that we use as well. But in terms of how we've been able to plant seeds every day, we planted more seeds today in our PD presentation, is putting the best research in front of good teachers. And I believe all my teachers are good teachers. And if they're not good teachers, it's my job to make them good teachers. Even when they're transferred from my building, and they've been in 6 different buildings in a district of 19. I have one of those, by the way. Right? I just met with them last week. I paired them up with one of our strongest teachers, and yes, we have to make that person a really What do we do when they don't learn it? And what do we do for those kids who have already learned it? We focus on those questions in collaborative same subject teams. I'm going to talk about how and when we do that. And they have to be answered collaboratively. If you're a singleton, then you have to align somehow to that. And some of those, again, we have those very small departments, or the Japanese teacher. And with 3 high schools, sometimes we can get them up with a light peer. But if not, they're still expected to do the work, and I'll kind of talk about that. Collaboration by invitation does not work, Rick DeFore says. And finally, that's what we had to do. At the beginning of Jerome, when we talked about, we had started a little bit of that work at Kaufman, and we had a core group of committed teachers come over who wanted to do education differently. They wanted to do business differently. All you need are a few. All you need are a few. We had visited, by the way, if you haven't visited Stevenson High School, or now I can say Dublin Jerome High School, come up and see how same subject teams work. We went to Stevenson High School. It's the greatest bang for a buck we had. They charge $30 a person to come. It's a cheap plane flight to Chicago. And by the way, talk about a city, 4,300 kids, 4-time National Blue Ribbon School, and one of the top high schools in the world. So we went because we wanted to learn from the best. Now we have people coming to see us, which is very honorable, but we have to still work and still get better at what we do. But it's a wonderful opportunity to see same subject teams. And, you know, just telling people to collaborate doesn't work, does it? It really doesn't work unless you're helping them define what collaboration is and you're giving them the tools to collaborate on. So, team norms. Each one of our same subject teams develops norms. If you're not familiar with the website, All Things PLC, it has all these reproducibles on there. All Things PLC. So, each team should have norms, because when you're going to do very, very hard work, which is designing common assessments, looking at data together, sometimes people can get a little emotional about that work, because that's when they want to hold on to things. They forget it's really about the kids. Developing team norms. This year, one of the things we did, we took all the team norms from last year. We used a Google Doc. We put them all together. We had all the teams that rate what were the top 5 norms, and we took those and made 3 building norms now that guide every meeting we had. Every staff meeting we put them up, every department chair meeting, every department meeting, and every same subject team meeting has those same norms. It's really helpful. So again, this is how we define collaboration. How the 4 defines it. And then that entered our SMART goal work. So you have a white sheet of paper, other than the one you're looking at, that looks like this. This is what we were using last year. This year we've changed it, but basically this is a sheet that we developed to make sure that when teachers were meeting, they were meeting about the right things. I call it the To Kill a Mockingbird unit rule. We had teachers, and I was a former English teacher, so I get it. Half of my career has been teaching, by the way, and then half of my career has been administrator. And what we wanted to assure of is that, you know, they really believe you couldn't graduate from high school without reading and studying To Kill a Mockingbird. They love To Kill a Mockingbird. They want to spend 4 weeks on To Kill a Mockingbird. It's my favorite book. I understand it. But those kinds of discussions were interfering with our ability to focus on 4 questions, which is not the direct content that we are using, but it is the learning targets we are looking at collaboratively, and making sure that every single team is teaching the exact same learning targets in the same scope and sequence. And then designing common assessments. And then looking at that data and deciding how we're going to intervene for kids who didn't learn for the first time. So we developed some worksheets, and again, All Things PLC has a longer list than this, Google Doc that every team completes every week, and that just compiles all that data for us, and then we can see what barriers that they are telling us they need. So our collaboration, our alignment to learning, every teacher is on the same subject team. If there are singletons together, like in our world language department, then they link up together. Small departments are grouped together because, again, nobody else teaches those subjects but those people. But again, it's more about learning target, not specific content in some of those. Finding time to collaborate has been an interesting journey for us. I was so glad when I listened to Washington Courthouse, they talked about that time, and more time. Teachers always want time. No, we've been open 11 years. They still want more time. But first, again, we have 3 high schools. Bell schedule is very important. Traveling teachers, still got to get them there. All those kinds of things that can become barriers. But the first thing we did an adjusted bell schedule. We called it gold period. That's one of our colors, gold. And 1 day a week, we altered the bell schedule so that it would have a 45-minute extra period. We had sandwiched between 4th period and what would be our lunch period. Kids that have all A's, B's, and C's earned privileges, and I'll go into more about that, but they were able to go to different parts of the building depending on whether they were sophomores, juniors, or seniors. Freshmen, you don't have privileges yet. You haven't proved that you can do high school. So you're in lockdown until you prove it to us. After that, kids with D's and F's, we did an A schedule one Thursday, a B schedule the next Thursday, and those kids had mandated intervention. They did not go and get to choose whatever they wanted to do. It was a learning emergency. When you have a D or F at Dublin Jerome High School, the whole school has to respond. The classroom teacher has to respond. The guidance counselor has to respond. Our SST team has to respond. The administrator has to respond. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's how we did it. We had to go away with that one because we went from 8 periods a day to 7 periods a day. No, we went from 7 periods a day to 8 periods a day. And people didn't want to give up any more class time, right? Because the classes were already short. It was always summer. Then we went, because of the contractual day, our teachers started at 7:15. Our bell doesn't ring for first period until 7:55. So we mandated one of those days a week you had to be in your same subject teams. Yes, you really did have to be there at 7:15, so you shouldn't have been, still at the stoplight before. Now we're on Working Wednesday. Working Wednesday, all 3 high schools agreed to a bell schedule. So every Wednesday our teachers come to work at 7:15. We've bumped the student time 25 minutes. So all students go from first period starting at 7:55 to now 8:20. So our teachers have almost an hour of collaborative time a week. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it has really helped at the high school level. That was a lot of explaining to do to parents, to staff, to communities. Our classes are 4 minutes shorter 1 day a week. And to have 3 high schools finally agree on that was probably nothing short of a miracle. But we all needed the time so much that, again, that's what drove that. We've been trying to get that and trying to get that and trying to get that. We also have a Google Doc on Working Wednesdays that they complete. They can identify barriers. They tell us what work they've been doing. And so far it's been very, very good. So here are the 4 questions. So I just want to look at them. You have that information. I don't like to read people presentations, but I do want to tell you about our work on learning target work. Marzana will tell you in the Art and Science of Teaching, if you're not familiar with that book, that is a tremendous resource. The Art and Science of Teaching is amazing. The most important work, nothing comes after that's any good if you don't do your learning target work. So, what percentage of teachers do you believe in your building can actually say, I can identify the learning targets for my course? If it's not 100%, then you have kids not learning something, don't you? We just surveyed our entire staff with that. That was part of what we did. So out of a 4-point, I'm like, yes, I can identify them. I use them every day and whatever. To learning targets, what are learning targets? We were about a 3.4 in there. Makes me nervous if we're not a 4. Because one of the things, if you're not learning the same learning targets as you know, then it turns into you're either lucky or unlucky as a student. Am I lucky enough to get the teacher that really knows the learning targets and I'm really going to learn in physical science what I need? Or biology? Or chemistry? Or am I unlucky? Which means my teacher loves chemistry. They love molarity. They want to teach molarity for 6 weeks. Unfortunately, that's not the scope and sequence that they're supposed to be doing it in. So we do a lot of learning targets. I can walk in my biology classes on any given day because they're a really strong team. They're all teaching the exact same learning target every single day. Their instructional strategies vary. I can also tell when they've gone back and they looked at question 3, which is reteaching some concepts. So there might be some time there, but they're all teaching the same scope and sequence, and they're all giving the same common assessments to better ensure that every student at Jerome is really learning biology as identified as it should be. Not so much in English and social studies. We're still getting there. They are, but they would rather philosophize about it a little bit. They just do. I'm a former English teacher. I get it. But it's been harder. In all fairness to them, the district has given more release time to math and science than they have to English and social studies. And so you usually get your bang for your buck. So again, there's always barriers on that. This morning we talked about it's not only important just to identify, but you must communicate learning targets, and you must communicate them to students. And the Marzano research really shows that the more effective communication you do of learning targets to students through scales and rubrics, and have the student do their own 0 through 4, yes, I'm getting at 4, I'm a champion, I can teach it to somebody else. The percentile points range from 16 to 41. My teachers love research. If I can by communicating my learning targets, maybe have a gain of up to 41 percentile points, I'm in. So it's really important, I think, to help our staff understand the why of what we're asking to do. And we never ask them to do anything that's not steeped in research. And they understand that. So question 2, how do we know if they have learned it? This is all your diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment work. Something we work on every day, and it's really a challenge to do. So one of the sheets you have is a blue sheet. It has SMART goals at the top. Every same subject team, or if you're a singleton, you must do it if you, no matter what you teach. You set a learning goal for our semester exams. Our semester exams are still very traditional. 40% of a kid's grades first quarter, 40% second quarter, 20% is their semester exam, and that adds up to a semester credit. We issue credit that semester. So again, those semester grades become very important because they're on transcripts. So every single team and every single teacher sets a SMART goals for students' performance. Hopefully what they're doing then is they design a diagnostic for every unit. That would be our goal. They do formative assessment aligned to the diagnostic. They're giving some short formatives all the way up into that semester exam. And then everyone knows assessments is how you use them. It's not what you call them. So then our semester exam becomes formative going into the second semester in a 4-year course to follow up with it. So this work pretty much is just so important to us. When we started in this work, we knew we couldn't do it alone. You have a pink sheet there. So one of the things we did was that we took apart our mission statement, which again says that we believe all students can learn at relatively high levels of achievement. And we had our parents, our students, and our staff align of that focus on learning. Because if a parent's not doing their part in sending their child to school or supporting learning at home, we can't do it in 48-minute periods. And so some of what they wrote have to do with supporting this work. You know, as a parent, we will respect and support teachers and administrators in their efforts in helping our students achieve high levels of performance. Everybody has a stake in this work, even though it's the teachers who are doing the assessment work. So this is something we work on. Data-driven decisions based on those diagnostic scores and those formative scores so that teachers are actually changing what they're doing. One of the things that we've tried to get away from are those dreaded 2-week syllabi. You know, where you determine in advance what you're going to do for 2 weeks, no matter what. So come hell or high water, Chapter 8 test has to be on the 11th because you got to keep moving. No matter what, no matter if kids are learning it or not learning it. And so that this work helps them to develop those data-driven decisions that then can help them toward that. But we worked a lot with them on when we visit classrooms. One of the things we want to see, Schmoker tells us in Focus. If you haven't read that book, it's a great book. He tells us the 2 most ineffective high school strategies today. I like Schmoker because he only researches high schools. At least he did in this book, 1,200 of them. 2 most ineffective strategies of high school teachers. 1, sitting at their computer during class. Right? Hey, go ahead and start your homework, guys. You're not monitoring them. You're not doing exit slips if you're doing that. 2, calling on kids with their hands up. Why? Because the kids with their hands up know the answer. How do you know the other 27 kids know the answer or not? So every 10 to 12 minutes, Schmoker tells us, we should be seeing some frequent check of understanding in that high school class. And that's what we try to do. And we see all kinds of wonderful things. We see popsicle sticks that are red, green, and yellow that they have to hold up on whether or not they've just understood whatever that learning target is. We have pluses and minuses and sticky notes. Put your sticky note on the plus or the minus, the teacher will say. And then reteach. And then they go and they tear their sticky note off the minus and put it on the plus. So we're getting there. We're not there yet, but at least they're cognizant of frequent checks for understanding during class. Exit slips at the end of class. Because guess what? On that 2-week syllabus, when you said all 30 kids were going to do the same 30 math problems for homework, the answer should be why. Because if you're using that data during class, so our teachers are developing banks of questions. So if you get it, if it's graphing a line, yes or no, you can graph a line. Why would every kid do the same 30 math problems on graphing a line if for sure 15 of them can graph a line at the end of that class? So it's something really to look at in terms of assessment, especially homework. We did a task force on homework. You're going to love those words, task force. Task force on homework. But it was great because we got student input, we got parent input, we got staff input, and we decided to discover we were all over the place on homework. So one of the things same subject teams have to do, they have to have a like homework policy. They have to be doing the same. Because I had 4 geometry teachers. One graded every piece of homework that was handed in every time. The second one didn't grade homework at all. Doesn't matter to me, it's for your benefit. One was kind of iffy. Maybe I do, maybe I don't on homework. And the other one was grading it only for completion. That's not giving students very good feedback. So now they all have to have the same homework policy on their team. No, we haven't done it in the building. I'm not willing to jump off that roof yet. Question 3, what do we do if they don't learn it? This is what we have found out in our PLC journey just this year. People are pretty good about learning target work. They understand the reason for that now. They're also pretty good. We're getting pretty good at formative assessment. We believe that's why our students are able to achieve at high levels. But this one is ruffling their feathers a little bit. Because what this means, we actually had to go back and look at those characteristics of a PLC, which means if you're a professional learning community, you are committed to, you must, it is required that you give kids extra time and support for learning. See? That's tough. That's tough. You mean I can't just leave them behind? I can't go on to chapter 9 right after chapter 8? So, we talk a lot about intervention and the work of intervention. And to summarize it, you have some of it there. Here's our pyramid of intervention. You have that copy. It's probably not fun to watch. Probably one. I don't know what color it's on. There, the pink. It's on the back of the pink. Thank you. This is our school pyramid of intervention. We re-look at it almost every semester and redo that. We are passionate about tracking grades. So every 4.5 weeks, we run a DNF list. That DNF list is by teacher. Yes, I need to know who's giving the most D's and F's in my building and why. 2, by student. All the administrators and the counselors and the teachers should be able to look at that list, because if that kid has a D or an F in your class and you look and they have a D and an F in 3 or 4 other classes, then my administrative team and the counselors call an SST meeting or student success team meeting right away, and boom. We have got to give that kid a lot of help and support. And no, you probably won't be in ceramics anymore, or global gourmet, our seniors' most favorite elective. We're going to rip those classes off your schedule, and you're going to be on our pyramid intervention in a much smaller, guided, 4-credit study hall, because obviously you have not learned how to learn. And then we try to teach kids how to learn in those settings. The other thing you'll see is a gold sheet and a green sheet. We have instituted a pretty extensive intervention and privileges system at Jerome. We reward kids who make good decisions academically. We reward kids who make good decisions with attendance, because if you're not there, we can't teach you. We reward them for coming to school on time, because again, this is your job. School is their job. It is their workplace. You should be there on time. Conversely, if you have a D or an F, a learning emergency, and it is our job to help you by giving you extra time and support. So you get a gold card. Kind of looks like this, except it really is a card. And a teacher can choose who gets it. I mean, if you have a kid that's absent and they've been having surgery and that, you're probably not going to give them a gold card. You're going to help them to make up the work. But if you have students that are really having a very difficult time learning that content, no matter how much time you've given them, no matter how differentiated you have been, then we need to help them. So we mandate intervention from them. We tie that to all kinds of privileges that they have. So our seniors can either have a late arrival or early release. Not if you have a D or an F. Because you're not home studying during that time. So we pull that. Driving and parking. If you're truant and you leave school property, you're using your car to be truant from school, you can forget your driving and parking privileges. Exam week, you can come and go during exam week when you have an exam if you have all A's, B's, and C's. You've taught us that you know how to study. If you have a D or an F, you're mine all week long. You come, we have a math teacher, an English teacher, a social studies teacher, a science teacher, and usually a Spanish teacher, who when they're not giving exams, we design that schedule for teachers. Those kids come in and get extra help, because guess what? They won't be studying on their own if they already have a D or an F. Our kids love our privileges. If you have a study hall on your schedule and you have all A's, B's, and C's, then we generate a little sticker for you, put on your student ID. You can sign out a study hall. Nope, you don't have to be anywhere in particular. We trust you. Why? Because you've already made good decisions. You're one of our best you're not truant, you haven't been out of school suspension, and you get all A's, B's, and C's. So I'll show you some of those seating areas and everything that we do. So that's some of what we do for question 3 then. The thing we're working on the most is now having teams devise their own pyramid of intervention within our bigger pyramid. We're finding that that's probably our greatest weakness area. As a same subject team, how do we intervene as the curriculum specialists in that building on Algebra 2 to make sure kids are learning what they're learning? So we're asking them, each team, to do a Tier 1 and Tier 2. I'll let you know if that works or not. Here's some of our seating areas and privileges. When you walk into Jerome as a PLC, you're going to see kids everywhere, and they're not supervised. And I'm okay with that because they have to make good decisions. So we have different seating areas. Most of the time, they're doing just what they're doing now. The 2 boys they're looking on their phones, and the other ones, they're studying together. And that's what you see a lot. High-performing kids need downtime, and all the research has also shown that. They need some time during their day where they can just sit. Question 4 has been the most difficult for us, simple because in priority-wise, 1, 2, and 3, it seems like that's where we've been going. That's our bang for our buck. But what do you do with the kids who have already learned it? We've been at a great advantage because of the number of identified gifted kids we have with that new bang for the buck on the report cards either way. So if that's not incentive enough to intervene with your gifted kids, really look at that. All of our teachers get our list of identified gifted kids. They also get all of our list of our subgroups. Every teacher should know who their subgroup kids are, and they identify those. Because at Dublin Jerome, we don't have a huge black population, which means that our OGT AYP could very well depend on 4 kids and how they do. So our teachers are given all that data and all that EVOS projected data and who those identified gifted and who all those subgroups are, because it does matter. Every student matters. Every kid matters. And that's how sometimes to look at your data a little bit differently. This is from Gettysburg.
Sir, here they come. We can't run away. If we stay here, we can't shoot. So let's fix bayonets. We'll have the advantage of moving down the hill. They gotta be tied rooms. They gotta be close to the end if we have. So fix bayonets. Ellis, wait, Ellis, you take the left wing, I'll take the right. I want a right wheel forward of the whole regiment.
When you mean charge?
Yes, but here's what we do. We're going to charge swinging down the hill. Just like we pulled back this left side of the regiment, now we're going to swing it down. We swing like a dog. We're going to sweep them down the hill just as they come up. Understand? Does everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ellis, you take the left wing. And when I give the command, I want the whole regiment to go forward, swinging down to the right.
All right, sir. Fine.
Move. Pistol. Business ball. Wait there.
Those of you that know anything about Civil War history, that's Joshua Chamberlain. When you go to Gettysburg, the point where he stood just raises hair on my arm. Joshua Chamberlain was in an impossible situation. That was the sixth charge upon him. And his commanding officer had told him he was the end of the line. He was absolutely at the end of the line. Had the Confederates taken and rounded him, they would have taken them, little rounds off, and would have won the battle. He was told to hold the line. His men were out of ammunition. 99% of the commanders in that situation would have surrendered that position. But I believe I know the reason why Joshua Chamberlain did not. It's because he understood the why. I think Chamberlain and Martin Luther King and people that have made a significant difference in life do so because they understand the why. It was not just that piece of ground at that particular point. He knew that if they got overrun, the South would win. I believe that in my heart. And I believe that schools who understand the why are more successful in student learning than other schools. We spend a lot of time talking about the what and the how at schools. We always have something to do. That's the what. There's all this curriculum to teach. And how are we going to teach it? So many teachers are engaged and principals and central office people on the what and the how. But the difference makers are the people like Joshua Chamberlain who understand the why. Every student counts or nobody counts. That's the why. Every day you're in a building. Every day you're in a building to help students learn. That's the why. And if we're not focusing on that, then that means it's only the what or the how we see. Joshua Chamberlain understood the why. We are here for a more important reason than just to have kids watch us do adult work. We must understand the why. So here's our three takeaways. Focus on learning every day with every teacher and every classroom, every period, because every student counts or nobody counts. Foster, build, and implement a collaborative culture that focuses on PLC work. That is absolutely what's made the difference in our school and hopefully in your school. And enact a results orientation. You must be willing to look at all your results, even the ugly ones, and they will be ugly at some point. And then make sure that you understand your current reality of those results and make changes to get better. So there's my contact information. That's my school address. I'm on Twitter at Cathy Sankey. I love Twitter for the making such small learning